So, hello and welcome to the Kendall MMA channel. I hope everybody had a good Christmas, a good holiday season, and are preparing for the upcoming new year. And speaking about the new year, 2025 is going to be a big year for the UFC, and there will be championship changes. And so, since I run a YouTube channel, and since I might be a complete idiot and I might have awful predictions at times, sometimes amazing, but most likely they're terrible. What I am going to do is predict who will be the champion by the end of 2025. Who will have the belt and stand tall going into 2026. Oh my God, I'm getting old. It was like last month I was 18 years old and I was graduating high school, but now it feels like I'm just having knee problems now, but it is what it is. But moving on from that, basically what this video is going to be is me going through every single UFC division, giving the current champion and predicting who will be the champion by the end of 2025. Pretty simple. Let's get right into it. But starting off with the flyweight division, I believe that Kai France will be the champion by the end of 2025. I think he will find a way to beat Pantoja. Now, here's my reasonings why. I think Pantoja eventually is going to have to come to the end of his championship reign. He is, I believe, 34 going on 35 right now. He will be turning 35 in April of 2025. And I think at some point he's got to meet his match, right? Typically, there is a curse among fighters in the UFC. If you are 35 years old, typically you don't really see a guy be champion in the lower weight classes. And flyweight, of course, being the lowest one in the entirety of the UFC, we've never seen a champion, I think, go over the age of 35. But don't quote me on that. I'm not entirely sure. But I think I am going to feed into the whole conspiracy theory that if you do go over 35 years old in the lower weight classes, you probably will lose your championship belt. And I think Pantoja at some point, he is very hittable. He likes to just charge forward and take shots on the chin with his head down pretty much for the most part. And I think that Kai France might be a bad matchup for him. We've seen Kai France show great takedown defense in the past. So I think he will find a way to neutralize the ground game of Pantoja. Maybe at times we'll see Pantoja get the back of him, but I think on the feet we'll see Kai France do more damage. And even before the Pantoja fight, I think he will fight Manel Cap, and I think he probably will beat him. Now, I'm not the most confident that Kai France beats Manel Cap. I will be rooting for Manel Cap in that matchup, but I do think that Kai France has a good shot to really do some heinous things to Manel Cap. But I do think we might see Manel Cap get outstruck by Kai France and possibly ever knocked down. It just seems like Manel Cap has these off and on performances, and when it's not Bruno Silva and it's a top contender, I don't know how he will do. But I have Kai France on here. Possible, yes. I wouldn't hate it if you think Pantoja continues his reign throughout 2025. That wouldn't shock me either. But I think if I really wanted to predict a new champion at flyweight, I think that right now Kai France has the best shot. There really isn't anybody else at flyweight. Like, it's actually just him and Manel Cap, maybe Amir Albazi, but he just lost to Moreno. So, I mean, there really isn't anybody. So it's just kind of pick your poison between Manel Cap and Kai France, or you think Pantoja just holds on to the belt, which I wouldn't disagree with, but I think Kai France has the best shot. But moving on to bantamweight, and the 2025 bantamweight champion, I believe, will be Umar Nurmagomedov. This one I think is probably written on the wall. Maybe Merab beats him, but I do think that Umar does prevail against Merab, and I think he holds the belt for the rest of 2025. And one thing I'm going to slip in here, I think we won't see Umar more than 2 times in 2025. I think he'll fight Merab, beat him, fight one more opponent, maybe an O'Malley coming off a win, and probably beat him as well, and then not fight for the rest of the year. I don't think we're going to see Umar have like 3 defenses this year, or win the belt and get 2 more defenses, or win the belt and just get 1 defense. Or you might just see him once a year against Merab, and that's it, because the bantamweight division has to shake out some way. There has to be some sort of clear contender. With O'Malley coming off a loss to Merab, it just wouldn't look good if O'Malley just got an immediate title shot and then beat Umar. I think he has to get 1 more win against somebody. I don't see Petr Yan beating Umar. So it's a tough time right now. We need some matchups to be happening in the top 10 to really create a clear-cut #1 contender for the winner of Umar versus Merab. And so with that, I don't think we're going to see Umar being too incredibly active if he does win the championship from Merab. So I think he'll clearly hold this into 2026. We'll see, but I'm taking Umar here to hold this belt throughout the entirety of 2025. But we move on to featherweight, and this one I think is also kind of written on the wall, kind of very, very simple. I think Ilya Taporia, I don't think anybody beats him in featherweight right now. It's just he's too much of a monster, too much KO power, too much amazing boxing. That didn't make much sense as a sentence, but he's just overall the full package right now. People forget, man. People forget that Taporia has good wrestling. I think he started out as like a jiu-jitsu guy. Like he can grapple. He tried grappling Holloway a few times, but overall he's the complete package. And I don't really know who can really beat him at featherweight right now. I don't see Volk beating him. I think he gets slept again. Obviously Holloway felt that same fate. Diego Lopez might be his biggest challenge, but I can see Taporia taking him down, holding him down, and probably choking him out. Maybe not choke him out, but I can see him win by just ground and pound and possibly even on the feet as well. I don't think Lopez's striking is the most clean when it comes to his head movement. Maybe Evloev. I think that Taporia smokes Evloev. I won't lie to you. I don't see how Evloev can beat him. I just think Taporia right now is on a reign of terror, and it's really just it's up to him, man. Does he want to reach GOAT status? And I think he should really get maybe 1, 2 more defenses of his featherweight belt. Then after that, if Islam still has the belt, maybe try it out at lightweight. But I want to see him fight Diego Lopez first. Maybe fight Evloev if they don't do the Evloev versus Lopez matchup. And then after that, then he can talk about fighting Islam at 155. But yeah, I think Taporia right now is just too good. He just simply is too amazing. I don't see anybody chinning him. I don't see anybody taking him down and controlling him. I don't see anybody outstriking him. If Holloway could not strike him, I don't see any other featherweight outstriking him. If Volkanovski can stay safe, maybe he can do well and maybe get that belt back from Taporia. But I see him getting chinned. I just think Taporia is going to find a shot on his chin. It's going to put Volk out. That's just how Taporia has been working recently. So I just don't think he's gonna lose the belt for a very, very long time until he gets old or he's just done and he wants to retire. So Taporia, 2025 champion into 2026. Moving on to lightweights. This might be a bit stale now, but I do have Islam Makhachev as still being your champ in 2025 and on a 2026. Here's the thing. I think that he does beat Sarukian, and it's kind of the same deal with Umar. There just isn't really any clear-cut contender after Sarukian if he does beat him. Like, who does he fight after Sarukian? Like, anybody, there's nobody really there for Islam to fight. Like, maybe an Oliveira in a rematch. If that's the case, and I think he does beat Oliveira again, sadly. I want Oliveira to be champ again, but, it is what it is. But, yeah, if it's not Sarukian, then it's Oliveira. And then, that's just, I think, two matchups where, well, more so the Oliveira one. But it's just one matchup where I think he clearly probably does beat Oliveira, who's aging and getting old in his career. And then it's Sarukian, which will be a tough fight. But I do think he will find a way to out-scramble him and out-damage him on the feet. I think Islam's striking is massively evolved. It's still evolving now. We saw in the Poirier fight, he can strike very effectively. We saw against Volkanovski, who I think is one of the most, probably still the most technical striker in the entirety of the UFC. Just his chin might let him down against Taporia, but we saw him go toe-to-toe, head-to-head with him. And I just think he's massively just improved as a fighter overall. I just don't see Sarukian finding a way to beat him on the ground or on the feet. I think Islam beats him and then goes on to fight maybe an Oliveira or not fight for the rest of the year. So Islam, just too talented. He's improving at such a massive, massive rate. It's going to take him, again, retiring or just getting too old for him to lose that belt. But now we move on to the welterweight division. And this one, I believe, is going to be a very, very hot take. It might get some people riled up, some people upset. And I have JDM. Now, hear me out. Hold on. Don't go to the comment section just yet. Don't type me a huge paragraph about how I'm an idiot. Just hear me out, man. I think that Shavkat does beat Bilal. I'll say that. I'll preface with that or preface with that. I think that Shavkat does beat Bilal. Then I think JDM beats Shavkat. Now, that might be crazy, but I think that Shavkat's offensive wrestling, it's okay. I think it's okay. I think it's just all right. I think Ian Gary, not a wrestler either. He just kind of does it for he's not bad at wrestling, but not like a perennial wrestler. Now JDM, we did see him fight Basila Fez, and he had a horrific showing. But I think that he has been working on that. I think he's been improving, and I think he fights one more time this year. I think in the meantime, we see Shavkat versus Bilal. I think Shavkat takes the belt from Bilal, and then I just think we get JDM as the next contender to fight Shavkat for the welterweight belt, and I think JDM beats him. I think on the feet he just outstrikes him with his boxing, and he wins outright. Just wins. I don't think he chins him. It will be funny if he did, but I do think he finds a way to beat Shavkat. So that's my prediction. That's my one wild take that I have out there. How can JDM beat Shavkat? We'll see. We'll see. Obviously, his boxing is one of the best in the welterweight division. Probably is the best in the welterweight division. Takedown defense can be iffy. If you want to say Shavkat on this list and not put JDM in here, I'm being kind of a homer here, not a homer, but I'm being kind of biased with JDM. He is my favorite fighter in the UFC. So if you want to discredit me for that, go ahead. But I do think that he has a great shot of beating Shavkat. I won't lie to you. I'm not trying to be some biased weird dude. I think that JDM has a great chance of finding a way to outstrike and land powerful punches on Shavkat. And I think he can beat him. And who's to say that maybe Bilal does beat Shavkat? I still think JDM beats Bilal. I think he chins Bilal easily. I think Bilal comes forward too much with his hands down, doesn't move his head. His pressure is good, his wrestling is good, but I think in the moments, JDM will catch Bilal, unlike how Leon Edwards did, and I think JDM will put his lights out. But when it comes to Shavkat, that's a more tough matchup for JDM, but if it's not Shavkat and it's Bilal, I think JDM, either way, is going to be the 2025 champion. So JDM, hot take, it is what it is. But moving on to the middleweight division. Now, you might expect me to put good old Khamzat Chimaev on here, but no, I will not. And it will not be Strickland either. I think that we will see DDP run the gauntlet. I think he'll win his rematch versus Strickland, and I think he'll win versus Chimaev. Again, might be a crazy take. I know Chimaev broke Whitaker's jaw in a crazy fashion. However, I think that Dricus du Plessis is a nightmare-style matchup for Chimaev, honestly. I think he's a terrible matchup for him. I think a guy who's a good chin. He has been chinned before by Roberto Sodic back in KSW, but since then, we haven't ever seen him get chinned or be remotely hurt by a punch in the UFC so far. I think DDP's grappling defense will show to be decent. We haven't seen him really tested in that department, but if I had to predict how the fight will go between him and Chimaev, I would say Chimaev has his normal dominant round in the first round like he always does. That's going to be him in every single UFC fight this year, but I think the pace, I think the cardio, I think the pressure of DDP is going to kind of get at and eat at Chimaev throughout a 5-rounder, and I can honestly see a 4th, 5th round finish for DDP if the fight goes that far. I do know that du Plessis looks goofy, looks like he can't strike, but he just choked out Adesanya. He took his best strikes, stayed on top of him the entire time, put the pressure on him, took him down, choked him out. People like to always say that he robbed Strickland. I thought that he won that fight. Obviously, it was very close. It can go back and forth, but I still think that DDP won that fight just by this much, barely anything. And I do think that in the rematch, we will see DDP win. I think the next contender for him will be Chimaev, and I think he does find a way to sneak past Chimaev. Now, Chimaev will have his moments. He will be the next person to fight DDP after the Strickland fight, and we'll see how that goes. Obviously, Chimaev is going to be a hard guy to survive the first round with, but we have seen it before. We've seen Kamaru Usman survive Chimaev in the first round. We've seen Gilbert Burns survive Chimaev in the first round. We've seen fighters survive him. So I don't think DDP will be any different than those guys. And I think in a 5-rounder, he'll find a way to survive that first round versus Chimaev and go on to probably win a decision just by outstriking him, out-hustling him, doing more damage in the moments that he needs to. So DDP, I think, will be your champion in 2025 into 2026. We'll see, though. It's risky, but we'll see. Now, moving on to the light heavyweight division, and this one does really pain me to say. I think it is Magomed Ankalaev. Now, I don't want it to be Magomed Ankalaev, but I think it probably will end up being him. I think he will grapple up Alex Pereira. Now, Pereira, I think, should be champ. He is the best thing for the UFC right now. He is fighting often. He's very active. He's having fun fights, having highlight reel KOs and finishes. He is the ultimate, saving grace for the UFC. He's actively saving UFC cards. There's just so much good in Alex Pereira. It's just hard for him to not be a champion because he is the main way the UFC was saved and made a lot of money throughout 2024, because without Pereira, what happens to UFC 300? What happens to that big mega card? It's tough. Like, who do you find next besides Pereira? So, whatever, I'm done glazing Pereira. But I think in a fight between Pereira and Ankalaev, I think Ankalaev might find a way to get it done with the grappling. It's just going to be tough, man. I don't want it to happen. I think Ankalaev is going to be pay-per-view poison. I don't think he's going to have a good personality. Obviously, he's already pretty boring as it is. I just am, you know, I'm realistic. I'm just realistic. Now, moving on to the heavyweight division. It is last, but it is not the least. This one I think is also a no-brainer. At some point, we're going to see Jon Jones either fight Tom Aspinall or vacate the belt. It's either one's going to happen, because if he's going to fight Tom Aspinall, I think Aspinall beats him. If he vacates, and then obviously Aspinall is now promoted to the undisputed champion of the heavyweight division. Either way, I don't see anybody being Tom Aspinall besides Jon Jones. Like that, I think the only person who could actually touch Aspinall right now would be Jon Jones, and I still think Aspinall would probably beat him. That's kind of like the whole thing. And if I had to bet my life savings on Jon Jones versus Aspinall happening, I would bet on it not to happen. So I wouldn't bet. So, I think we're going to see Jon Jones vacate the belt, retire. Hopefully he does end up fighting Aspinall. Maybe Dana White will fork up enough money to pay him like tens and millions of dollars to fight Tom Aspinall. But I just don't think Jon Jones will ever accept it. He has been hell-bent on not fighting this man. He has ignored him in every single facet. He has dodged him publicly. He just doesn't want to fight him. He'd rather fight Derek Lewis than fight Tom Aspinall to unify the belts. So I just think there's no way you can really coerce Jon Jones, even with all the money you might offer him, to fight Tom Aspinall. So I think we're going to see Tom Aspinall just be promoted to undisputed champion and fight the contenders, so on and there forth. And so I think once that happens, maybe around mid-2025, we see that change where Jon Jones does vacate that belt. I think Tom Aspinall beats everybody. I think he beats a Cyril Gane. I think he takes him down and control him. I think he even outstrikes him, because I think, Volkov kind of showed that he could outstrike Cyril Gane as well. And other than Cyril Gane or a Volkov, a Gelton Almeida, like, who really does end up beating Tom Aspinall? I don't think anybody heavyweight has a chance against him right now. So I think he's going to hold that belt for probably quite a long time, until he just wants to give it up, or maybe he gets fluke chinned by somebody. But, I think Tom Aspinall is right now the next guy up at heavyweight. And I think that's pretty clear and cut. So that's it. That's who I think will be champion in 2025. If you enjoyed this video, like, subscribe, bell icon for notifications. If you disagree, maybe you do agree, maybe you hate me, maybe you love me, leave a comment in the comment section down below. I like reading your guys' comments. But thank you. I'm out of here.